Okay, welcome to Mitten State Sheep and Wool online mill tour. I'm Sandra. I am the shepherdess, hand spinner, fiber artist. I also skirt, wash, pick and card the wool on the farm. This is Michael. He's the visionary behind the mill.
I have assembled the mill, various pieces from around, and take care of the building. We converted the barn over into the building, and so try to make some improvements where we can and repairs where we need to.
Okay. We purchased the farm over 20 years ago. Before we even moved out here, we knew that we wanted to raise sheep. At least I did. We started out with 4 Romney ewes. Through the years, we've raised many different breeds, but right now on the farm, we have Border Leicester, Romney, Tunis, and Blue-Faced Leicester, and some crosses of the above. And that's kind of how we got started with the idea, or he got started with the idea of a mill. So I'll let him explain that a little bit.
Yeah, we basically just we're looking for something to do with our wool besides, sell it. We enjoyed that, but got intrigued by the machinery mainly. That's what I do as a tool maker, machine builder. So particularly interested in the old machinery and being able to keep that running, but mostly to process our own. And as it grew, there was interest, and we began to process for other Michigan or other people, even out of state. So that's how we got started.
Well, it starts with shearing the wool. We have we get about 50 fleeces from our own flock. We also purchase wool from other local farmers. We worked with our wool for several years before we opened it up to work with other farmers to process their wool. This is our skirting table that Mike built for me, which is really nice. When we shear our sheep, I do put the fleeces on here, skirt out the really heavy VM before it gets bagged up. Before it gets washed, we go ahead and take it back out again. I go through the fleeces. This is a fleece that actually someone sent in to have processed, a friend of mine who raises Border Leicesters. This is the first time I've actually looked through it. There's no manure tags or anything like that in it, which is good. If I do find heavy VM, I will take it out. But one thing I do want to say is skirting is your friend. The more you skirt out, the better your finished product is. So I spend a lot of time skirting. Big, heavy pieces of VM are just going to contaminate the rest of the fleece. I kind of skirt my wool a little differently. When I skirt, I kind of split it up into kind of like 2 or 3 different piles. The really good stuff goes in pile 1. The stuff that's got a little more heavy VM goes into pile 2. And then there's the mulch pile of stuff that I don't want in my wool at all. And I do process that separately. The stuff that got a little bit more VM. But the nice thing with Border Leicester, a lot of it will fall out during the process. You use a little bit in the skirting. You get a lot of the VM out. You also lose some in the washing, in the picking, and the carding. But what VM is left in it after skirting, you're going to lose about another 50% through process. Border Leicester maybe a little bit more because it releases it, but definitely the finer fibers, plan on having about 50% of your VM left in your wool that isn't basically picked out. This fleece is my sample fleece of, we get a lot of people, another common question is how much VM is too much. So I picked out this fleece. This is a lot of manure tags, things like that really need to be removed. This fleece is just a hot mess. We've gotten fleeces with shavings that doesn't come out, wood chips, but definitely manure like this needs to be removed. This is what I'm talking about with heavy VM. I know sheep are dirty. This VM is acceptable, but this is pretty bad. So stuff like this, I basically just remove and take out. If you have a really prized fleece, I hear a lot of people say, well, you can send it to the mill, that can get it clean for you. That's not true. If you actually have a prized fleece that's just really, really dirty and you really don't want that waste, combing it is the best. But we card here so that, stuff like this is fine, dirt comes out. This doesn't. So that's kind of just the skirting process that we go through. Or they can do
that by hand themselves if they prefer.
Right. So anyway, so we'll go ahead and after we skirt, we wash and dry the wool. Washing is the most time-consuming aspect of the wool processing just because of the time. You have basically 4 cycles that goes through, 2 washes, 2 rinses, and then you have the drying time. And if the humidity is high, that can take a little bit of time too. But we're gonna go ahead and go in there and Mike can explain kind of how our wash setup works.
Coming into the mill. So for our water processing, we filter, soften, and of course heat the water. As Sandy mentioned, this is a soaking of a 3-bay stainless sink, and we will, as she mentioned, we'll wash twice, rinse twice. Between the rinses and the washings, what we do is we run it through an extractor. These are the same types of extractors you used to see in the old laundromats. The logic there is once we have the lanolin emulsified in the soap and the dirt fine suspended in the water, the more of the water we throw out, the more of the dirt we throw out. Quite simply that. The soap that we use is the soap of a friend of mine and a business partner that helped develop it. He has a team of chemists. He's in the lubrication industry, but this is something that he did for us. And we went back and forth till we got the pH right. And it's botanical, and so it's very good on the environment. Secondly, we do not have any perfumes or any types of scents in that. And the reason being is that when we get the wool washed, we want to be able to be absolutely sure that there's no fragrance that's masking the wool, and that would be the indicator to us that we haven't got it clean enough. So without any of that, we're able to be absolutely certain that we've got all the lanolin out and we're as clean as we can get before we go into the picking and carting. So.
Like I said, once it's washed, we do have dry racks that we put out and set the wool out. And when it's completely dry, it comes back in the mill over to our picker, which we'll show you now. This is a border lusher fleece that needs picked. As you can see, it's been washed. All the lanolin's been removed. One of the things I do want to make a comment about is we do have people send in washed wool, and it needs to have the lanolin removed, which takes really hot water and soap. If we get the wool and it's still sticky, then we have to rewash it. And unfortunately, when it's been washed and all the lanolin has been removed, sometimes it's even more sticky. So it's even more of a process to get that out. But to run through our equipment, it's not like hand equipment. You really need the grease removed because it hampers with the machinery. So anyway, this is the border lusher fleece that's ready to be picked. I can put my hands through it. There's no grease, no smell, just it's good to go. Then we'll go ahead and when you do pick the wool, basically what the picker does is just kind of fluffs it and pulls it apart and gets it ready for the carder. It also gets a little bit of that, more of that VM removed. When I pick it, I like to go through the wool. Basically what I'm doing is going through it a second time from the skirting table. Like I just found a burr in it and pulled it out. It just kind of helps me go through the wool a little bit more individually. It's washed, so a lot of the VM's gonna fall out, and it's a lot easier to find pieces of VM in there, and that's when I kind of basically pull it out. So we'll go ahead and I'll let Mike explain a little bit about where we got the picker from and how it works.
So this, just incidentally, all the equipment we'll be looking at, the guards have been removed just for ease of being able to see what's going on. But this is a Davison Ferber 24-inch. This is really small by a lot of industry standards. This is 1914, made over in Andover, Massachusetts, and I found it in Massachusetts several years ago, really not that far from where it was manufactured. The process is quite simple. There's a set of pinch rollers in there similar to a wringer washer, and so that holds the wool, and there's this rotating drum has fingers on it, and as those fingers pass over and you see it rotate around, that's holding back some fiber and it's trying to pull some of the fiber out. Behind it we have a picker box. A lot of people have a picker room. The reason I went with the box is because that allowed me to put my net floor in it. And the reason for the net floor was just an experiment that I ended up liking when it was done. I noticed when I went just onto the floor, as I picked up the last of some of the stuff, I pulled a lot of the previously picked things out as I scooped it up. So the net floor allows the shorts from clipping or from shearing, and a lot of dirt, a lot of VM to fall through, and it does. And so as I pick it up, I can get that out of there, and we know we're ready to go into the carder. So.
take a little bit to get it up and running. The drum in there is really heavy, so it has to pick up speed, so it does take a few minutes. We usually give it a few minutes to warm it up and get that drum rolling really well. Again, I take my time with picking because it's like I said, my last chance to go through the wool before it goes through into the carder. I just fill up the tray. All wool gets picked the same. Works its way down the conveyor. Comes back out in the picker box. It's always interesting to work with the old equipment because you kind of look at the new stuff and it basically is the same. Like a lot of the concepts are the same.
Concepts is good. More controls, guards.
I'm gonna open it, they can see.
Okay. Again, there's
You let you kind of peek and see
you get down in there and see
the needles. When it really gets going, it really just blows it. This box will be full with doing a fleece. You have to make sure the doors are closed or it ends up filling up the mill. I know from experience. Yeah, so this is pretty much what it looks like. Nice and fluffy. Doesn't have to be completely open up, but it's ready for the carding machine, which is right over here. I kind of already have some wool in it. This is actually Rami that we raise. The carder, basically, this is the last step that basically takes the wool, straightens it up. You can put it into a bat form, but we have a roving attachment on our carder, and we make roving with it. I'm gonna go ahead and let Mike explain a little bit about the carding machine.
Okay, this is again a Davison Ferber, just a 24-inch, relatively small from back in the industry days, but this is probably my early 50s, early 1950s that is. The carding machine still today have the basic general ideas. You have a breaker section, which is exactly that. It's kind of breaking up the fibers. It's a rougher end. And then we go into a transfer section, main cylinder. This is called a roller top card, and clearly because there's rollers over the tops of the main cylinder, transfer cylinders. Each of these rollers have a specific function. This is a worker cylinder, this is a stripper cylinder. So the stripper's job is to take the wool off of the main drum, and the worker's job is to put it back down. And of course, all that is lining things up. This is a metallic covered cloth. Most of what you see, probably most familiar with, is going to be more of a fillet wire with a rubberized base. This is heavier type of a carding cloth. So this, some people call this like a worsted card. Because of that, it does have the tendency to not flex with the noils and neps. It tends to comb them out and toss them on the floor. So the alignment is very good on this card. It's not going to be pin drafted tight, but it's very, very well lined up. And this machine came out of Washington State, so I secured it from Washington State, had it shipped in, and here we are.
Go ahead and turn on the Joffer crown.
So one of the things that probably, maybe I'll share just one of the misconceptions, or maybe things that's important to know, is that with the carding process, one would think that the teeth are actually interlocking and bypassing. That's not quite how that works. What actually happens is the work is done between the needles, so one is being pulled across the other. In order to remove it, they actually travel in the same direction, but this roller perhaps is moving quicker than this one and will pull it off. typically the clearances between those we try to keep to about 1.5 to 2 times the diameter of the fiber. Any closer than that, we risk damage. Any further apart, there are updrafts and currents, air currents, that begin to travel through the rollers, and those will cause the fiber to rotate and oil and cause problems. So the clearances and the setting of this machine are quite critical. We like to keep them that way. So again, this is the doffer. The doffer comb is doing the same thing. These, as you can see clearly, these are pointed downward, and this is just moving much more rapidly and pushing that fiber off of this cloth.
We process the wool. Basically, it comes out in roving, and we put it into a drum. So basically, this is the roving that we get. It's not real thick roving because it's a 24-inch card, but it spins up really nice. You can see where it's straightened it out, and most of the, you can see where a lot of the little bit last part of the BM kind of falls out. Kind of see it falls out on the tray, which is kind of a nice aspect of the carding machine. So basically this is what we end up with. This is one of our Romney sheets. So you basically start with the raw, and this is what you end up with. And a lot of people use this for spinning or felting. And it's just amazing to me, the process of just starting with the sheep in the field to this.
So we raise the hay to feed the sheep, the shear the sheep, the wash, pick, card, make roving.
Yeah.
Pretty vertical.
Share our love for wool with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping.